Salutations and fist bumps, folks. Welcome back to the grid. We need to talk about everything that could be around Spider-Man 4 and everything that I've learned so far. On the surface, it's an appropriate title for a Spider-Man story that follows Spider-Man No Way Home, which is a film that ended in a reset of the reality of Spider-Man with Doctor Strange's memory wipe spell, causing everyone in this universe to forget that Spider-Man is a kid named Peter Parker, and allowing Peter to reset his status quo, going from a Stark intern with overpowered tech suits and all that kind of stuff to just a broke dude in a rundown apartment with a DIY suit that he made on his bed, listening to police scanners and whipping them around Manhattan. But using the word day in the title also links Brand New Day to Avengers Doomsday, but how connected will these films actually be? If you've read the comics, at least since the 2000s, you'd also know that Brand New Day is the title of a 2008 storyline by Dan Slott, Mark Guggenheim, Bob Gale, and Zeb Wells, directly following the 2007 storyline One More Day by J. Michael Straczynski and Joe Quesada. In One More Day, Peter Parker is dealing with the fallout of unmasking himself during the events of Civil War, the comic event. In the fallout of this event, Kingpin places a hit on Peter and the assassin's bullet misses Peter and ends up hitting Aunt May. So now, seeking to help Aunt May, Peter turns to a little girl who turns out to be Mephisto, who offers to fulfill Peter's wish to warp reality and to make his identity a secret again, but at the price of Peter and Mary Jane's relationship. Peter agrees, reality warps, Aunt May is now alive, but Peter and MJ's relationship is gone. And we find out that the little girl is actually the daughter that Peter and Mary Jane would have had. And then that brings us to Brand New Day, which I'm referring to the issues that started at the Amazing Spider-Man 546 in January 2008 and ran through 102 issues through 2010. And it refers to the general period after One More Day, where here Peter and MJ are no longer married and his history has been altered so that the two were in a long-term relationship at one point, but things ended on less than favorable terms. Some people in the general public inside the comic event vaguely remember Spider-Man unmasking himself during Civil War, but they do not remember the face underneath the mask. This period introduces a few new characters like Carly Cooper, a forensics expert, and her friend Lily Hollister, who's the girlfriend of Harry Osborn. There's also the superhero Jackpot, who originally was Sarah Arete or Arette, but the moniker is taken over by Elena Jobison. This is also generally the time in Spider-Man comics in which Mr. Negative, Martin Lee, has been taking over and making a name for himself. Then the Brand New Day period would shift into Spider-Man big time and Joe Quesada's sequel to One More Day called One Moment in Time, which One Moment in Time refers to the Amazing Spider-Man 638 in 2010. Since One More Day was abbreviated as OMD, Quesada said that One Moment in Time could be called Omit or OMIT, to basically as a reference to OMD omitting Peter and MJ's marriage from history, since OMD was considered by fans to be a controversial retcon, so to speak, and Omit or OMIT, One Moment in Time, was Quesada's attempt to try and fix things. We learned that Mary Jane was actually aware of Mephisto's deal with Peter and agreed to it on the condition that Mephisto would leave Peter alone forever afterward. The day of MJ and Peter's wedding is revisited as Aunt May's near death, but now Peter saves her with CPR and Kingpin instead sends an assassin after MJ's aunt, Anna, instead. In this revised history, Doctor Strange with Tony Stark and Reed Richards creates a psychic blind spot to make the world forget that Peter is Spider-Man, so that anytime people would see evidence of the connection, they would just fail to connect those dots. Mary Jane still decides, though, not to stay with Peter because she believes it's only a matter of time before he would be unmasked again and her family would be in danger once more. So this then ends with Peter on a rooftop alone, basically now by himself, because the main person that he was trying to protect and keep covered basically set him free, and he can now go all over Manhattan and do what he needs to do or wants to do as Spider-Man. And he can face anything in life, and that then allows him to feel that this is a brand new day. So you can see how some of these storylines could make their way into the minds of the writers and producers over at Sony to give this Spider-Man 4 title the name Brand New Day, especially when it directly follows a similar memory wipe spelled by Doctor Strange in No Way Home. It'll be a brand new day for Peter in the way that the period after One More Day was. But also, using day in the title also suggests that the 3 films that are coming up could incorporate day in their titles, the same way that the previous trilogy with Tom Holland used the word home. Now, Tom Holland appeared during a CinemaCon panel to say that Spider-Man Brand New Day would be, and I quote, a fresh start. But that's all he said. And director of this film, Destin Daniel Cretton, who's also the director for Shang-Chi, he also told the crowd that the 4th movie would feature a new suit for Spider-Man. This 4th Spider-Man film is releasing on July 31st, 2026, nearly 3 months after Avengers Doomsday. Now, if you don't remember, he was previously attached to Avengers 5 when it was codenamed the Kang Dynasty. But Tom Holland revealed that this script is still under development within the past year in some interviews. And he also said that he and his girlfriend Zendaya have read the script or read a version of the script, which raises some speculation that Zendaya might show back up as this universe's MJ once more. And then in the past month, which I reported on in a separate video, it was reported that Sadie Sink is rumored to join this cast. Now, rumored roles at the time of this report included a young Jean Grey or Mary Jane Watson from another universe. Scooper Daniel RPK posted an unconfirmed rumor about a casting call for the 4th Spider-Man movie, describing Sadie Sink's role as, and I quote again, a sharp and free-spirited woman with a mysterious past, strong-willed, intelligent, and not easily intimidated. This Scooper also claimed,
but wait, there's more!
A female villain, 30s to 50s, any ethnicity, and a powerful and imposing figure seeking an actress with strong and commanding screen presence. Also listed is a new male role, a resourceful young man in his early 20s, and a new male role, 30s to 50s, any ethnicity, a no-nonsense authority figure who sees the world in black and white, loyal, determined, and willing to cross lines to maintain order. So, Sadie Sink, if she's not an alternate universe Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, could be one of those women from the Brand New Day comic period, Harley Cooper, Lily Hollister, or Jackpot. But it's also been rumored that she could be Firestar as well. Now, the early 20s male could be Harry Osborn, by the way, and the 30s to 50s male role who sees the world in black and white could be Mr. Negative, or the new owner of the Daily Bugle during this period, whose name is Dexter Bennett, or the NYPD detective Vin Gonzalez, who also hates Spider-Man, similar to Jay Jonah. Now, once again, this wouldn't be a blurred grid video if we didn't play in the left field of the MCU, so let's head on over there for a second, because for what it's worth, Venom: The Last Dance repeatedly showed some mystery figure who was spying on Eddie Brock's movements without ever explaining who that guy actually was. And I always wondered in the back of my mind if the plan was to introduce this character as Mr. Negative. I know based on track record with Sony and Marvel, they want to get this guy inside of a Spider-Man movie or inside of the universe at some point. And I know that Sony, even though everything is branded with Marvel on top of it, Sony definitely wants to build their own cinematic brand because they haven't had that luster in the past couple years, because they've made some questionable choices. But in case you need the reminder, remember that Spider-Man No Way Home ended with Peter's multiversal counterparts, played by Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, returning to their home universes, along with William Dafoe's Norman Osborn, Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, Jamie Foxx's Electro, Tom Hayden Church's Sandman, and Reese Seyfried's The Lizard. Also, Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock Venom, as we saw in a post-credit scene that was actually picked back up in Venom: The Last Dance. And while I'm on this subject, again, in the left parts of the MCU, Venom 3 included a very weird detail of showing the Mexican resort town in the 616 universe as a vibrant metropolis filled with high-rises and lights. But when Eddie and Venom transported back to the universe of the Venom films, which was established in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse as Earth 688, that universe's Mexican resort town was smaller and less developed. So why did they have that change? Nobody knows. But possibly it was an editing mistake, or it could have been intentional. Now, let's take a second to uncover why we didn't see Tom Holland in the list of chairs that Marvel live streamed a few weeks ago, and what or possibly who could be coming up later. Because it's possible that those 27 names that we saw in that live stream are probably the actors who will appear first on set for Avengers Doomsday, whose travel movements are less easy to hide in early April. Which, again, by the way, this is now in production in terms of Doomsday. While the ones who are not announced are the ones who may be shooting their scenes later on in the production period, like Tom Holland, for example, or actors whose contracts are still being finalized, or they may just be on different projects at the time. Still, not seeing Tom Holland's name did for a moment open up some possibilities that Spider-Man 4 could be completely disconnected from the crisis brewing in the multiverse right now. Avengers Doomsday is almost certain to destroy the 616 Earth via some type of incursion event, and then use pieces of that Earth to form Doctor Doom's battle world. So it's difficult for some to imagine how Spider-Man 4 could be set in New York after Doomsday, if Doomsday is going to wreck that world that the current New York is standing on. And it's also kind of hard to imagine how Peter Parker could be left out of Doomsday. Avengers Doomsday is set to release on May 1st, 2026. Spider-Man 4 Brand New Day is set to release after Doomsday on July 31st, 2026. So this would suggest one of three different scenarios. Scenario number one, Peter is not in Doomsday at all, because Spider-Man 4 could retain the option to be a street level story unaffected by the events of the multiverse. And then maybe after the events of Spider-Man 4, Peter could rejoin the other Marvel heroes when everyone gets taken down to Battleworld, which would then happen in Avengers Secret Wars. Scenario number two, Spider-Man 4 could be set before Doomsday. We could get an Avengers Doomsday with no Tom Holland, Peter Parker, and then 3 months later, a Spider-Man 4 that takes place before or during the events of Avengers Doomsday, like on the same day, which is a rumor that I've seen or heard around the community. Oh, and by the way, Marvel Studios did something similar to this with Ant-Man and the Wasp in 2018, because Avengers Infinity War came out in May 2018, and then in July 2018, Ant-Man and the Wasp was its own story set in San Francisco. The main events set 1 month before Thanos' snap, and then in the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp, We then catch Scott Lang and the Ant family back up to the exact moment that the snap happens. But then there's scenario number 3. Spider-Man 4 could take place completely outside of the 616 universe, somewhere in the multiverse or in Battleworld completely. I mean, this is the Multiverse saga here, people, which is a saga that will not end until Avengers Secret Wars. It was just possible that the Avengers Doomsday events could feature the folks that we currently expect, and the 616 Earth would be destroyed by an incursion. And then 3 months later, we see a Spider-Man 4 story that is set someplace that is not 616 Manhattan that we currently know. It could, because of the just sheer vastness of the Spider-Verse, be set somewhere inside of the Spider-Verse, or it could be a version of Manhattan that is now set on Battleworld. But I'm sure, almost positive, that Spider-Man is going to be around this story somehow, because if they're going from Jonathan Hickman's 2015 story of Secret Wars, Spider-Man is a key cog in the machine of getting all of the Marvel heroes back outside of Battleworld. And believe me, if you haven't read Jonathan Hickman's 2015 story of Secret Wars, do yourself a favor and pick that up if you do nothing else before you see these events in the upcoming movies, because it will make a lot more sense if you already have that in your back pocket going into the theater, because some of this stuff is just going to make way more sense if you know that story. But now that we've gone through all of that, leave your predictions down in the comment section, because now we need to have some dialogue and some communication about this whole situation. And I'm just curious to know what you guys think. If you're new around here, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe button, and the bell. And until next time, y'all be smooth. Blurred out.